Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Rise of Africa as the Next IT Outsourcing Hub, brought to you by Technology and Services Industry Association and sponsored by Tech Experts. My name is Vanessa Lucero, and I'll be your moderator for today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded. A link to the recording of today's presentation will be sent to you within 24 hours via email. Audio will be delivered via streaming. All attendees will be in a listen-only mode, and your webinar controls, including volume, are found in the toolbar at the bottom of the webinar player. We encourage your comments and questions. If you think of a question for the presenters at any point, please submit through the Ask a Question box on the top left corner of the webinar player, and we will open it up for a verbal Q&A portion at the end of today's session. Lastly, feel free to enlarge the slides to full screen at any time by selecting one of the full screen button options, which are located in the top right corner of the slide player. I would now like to introduce our presenters today. John Ragsdale, Distinguished Researcher and Vice President of Technology Ecosystems for TSIA. Dr. Rotundo Windingwi, Managing Director for Elevate Africa. Bola Olasaiya, Country Manager of Nigeria for Tech Experts. Gary Bennett, Country Manager for Rwanda for Tech Experts. And David Papworth, Director of International Customer Support for Micro Focus. As with all of our TSA webinars, we do have a lot of exciting content to cover in the next 45 minutes. So let's jump right in and get started. John, over to you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Every time we are faced with economic issues, the volume of inquiries that TSIA receives around outsourcing starts to climb. And we're seeing that happening now as more companies start evaluating core versus context, thinking about potential ways to improve scale, reduce costs over the coming year. And today we're going to be talking about not just some excellent case studies in how to outsource effectively, but looking at some new areas that you should be investing in when you're considering your outsourcing options. So currently, when we look at the reason that TSIA members are outsourcing, no surprise, primarily it's around increasing availability, cost, increasing geographic coverage, et cetera. And support is always under a lot of pressure to scale and to scale in a very cost-effective way. So of our members who do outsource, 84% are outsourcing level 1. Those less complex issues are definitely the easiest things to collaborate with a third party on. But we are seeing some increase in level 2 and level 3 as well. So, definitely you need to, I'd say, keep an open mind on particular product lines, particular issues that may make sense. One of the questions we always receive is, what are the trends in outsourcing locations? And, over the years, we've seen focus shift from different areas across Eastern Europe and Asia. And today we're talking about some really exciting things going on in Africa as an outsourcing location. And I would just challenge all of you, when you're thinking about your next outsourcing location, we always are trying to balance cost and quality, but we're going to dig a little bit into today some of the social and economic impacts as well of investing in outsourcing in some emerging countries. And so with that, I would like to turn things over to our first guest speaker today. Gary Bennett is the Rwanda Country Manager for Tech Experts. Gary, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for the welcome, and to Vanessa as well. Really great to be back working with the TSIA team. And I know certainly from a Tech Experts perspective, we're prepping heavily for Envision. So hopefully we'll be able to see you guys and the team out there in the webinar in Las Vegas later on in October. So yeah, really exciting time, and I was excited to do today as well, especially about Africa. As John said, I'm the country manager for Rwanda, and I'm sat in Kigali, so the capital of Rwanda, and I've been blessed to be here for the last 18 months working with tech experts and setting up and running our most recent operation here. I think to be able to talk about Africa and to be able to talk about our experiences and our successes, because that's what today is very much about. It's not about a PowerPoint. It's not about showing you slides. We will have them, but importantly, we've actually got one of our clients that we work with, David, who's going to be on later, actually talking about the real experience of being here and what it's been like in Africa from a client perspective. So today, I want to talk a bit about Africa. I think the excitement was doubled. If anyone saw, we had an intro from JB, the TSAI CEO. He'd actually spent time recently in Tanzania and in Rwanda itself. So he'd seen it firsthand and just unprompted kind of wanted to put out that it is real. And I guess that's the message that we're going out to here. We spend a lot of time talking about, Africa as 54 individual countries and what it offers and the difference and the skill and particularly the talent and the people is kind of what's key. So today, as you can see on the slide there, we're going to do a bit of both go large and go home. So we're going to start talking a bit about Africa as a continent. So what has it got? What does it look like? And Rutenda is going to take us through that. Then look a bit closer at Nigeria and Rwanda, so the two locations that we have here. And then really important at the end, just wanted David to talk through his kind of experience and just through questions and answers as well with John, how it felt to be in Rwanda. So that's the plan. I'll start a bit to just give you a bit of context from a tech expert's perspective. So tech experts, we've got technology in our title, but we're really about people. We've been doing this for just over 10 years. And in that 10 years, lots have changed for all of us. I mean, 10 years ago, I don't know, what was it? Intelligence wasn't artificial. Electric cars were a must, not a must. And we hadn't even thought about having a pandemic. I mean, who was thinking about that? And a lot has changed in that 10 years. But what we've seen in that change is particularly around how people are working and how people want to work. And definitely the pandemic really brought that into our attention. We see talent shortages, and I'm sure everyone on the call out there at the moment is seeing that. How do you find the right people who are going to get into your organization, add the value, bring the skill, and then be able to support the technology developments that are out there? Even if we find them, we are not necessarily prepared, and certainly that's Rutenda's world around how we make sure that companies are prepared to bridge those digital skill gaps, because that bit is really, really important, creating talent, and we find that we've got that ability here from an Africa context. And then finally, how do we make sure we're inclusive? Top of everyone's mind at the moment, an inclusive environment adds to the way we are collaborative, the way we produce results, and we've got to make sure that we really drive intentional agendas around getting either women into technology or people with disabilities in technology, making sure that we're entirely inclusive. Our start point for that really has been a location strategy that's wide-ranging. It's global. So we've got the ability to tap into types of talent, types of people, levels of skill across the globe. So work that we might want to put with particular experience or particular language skills, we might focus in Costa Rica or into Bulgaria. And then we've got our APJ region, so we've got the ability to support from an Asia-Pac perspective. And then most importantly, to Bola and myself, close to our hearts, we have the Africa location right in the middle there. So that's what we're going to really focus on today and talk through how tech works in Africa and the experience that we've had and how that could work for you, for your company, your organization, and particularly in terms of people. We've kind of almost codified this a bit and wanted to talk around, I just wanted to introduce this idea. So we've tried to pull together it into a tech talent view and how through tech experts and our ability to deliver operationally and elevate with our ability to digitally cross that divide and bridge those skills, we would start to initially source. So how do we source for people? How do we look for those talent pools? How do we do the gap assessments and the pre-boarding, which we focus quite a bit on from an Africa context, to make sure that when people join an organization, they're ready for full onboarding. They're ready for the technical skills. They're ready for the client understanding and can really be successful once they hit the ground and once they start working on your support needs. Then it's about growth. I think one of the changes that we've seen in those 10 years is this certainly our Gen, whatever letter we're on now, X, Y, Z, really focused on how do I keep growing? What do I do? What do I learn next? Where do I go? How do I have a purpose for what I'm doing? So creating those individual learning journeys are really, really important. So how do we make sure that as we're working to find your talent, source your talent, grow your talent, we've got the ability to keep people engaged. The idea of the retention piece is really, really key to us. And then really almost starting with the end in mind. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be outsourcing? Do you want to have an operation like we've got here for Micro Focus that's outsourced? We run, we make it all work seamlessly. Is it about hosting? So we've got employees that we look after. We provide the lights, the power, the connectivity, the IT equipment, but you want far more hands-on management for some way? Or do we start to hire directly for you? And certainly in Bola's world, he's got some really good examples of how we're starting to do that. So that's kind of a bit of background. That's the plan for today. That gives you a bit of an idea of what tech looks like. And I'm going to start by handing over to the man who's going to go large, talk about Africa, and that's Rotendo. Rotendo, are you there?
Hey, Gary, can you hear me loud and clear, my friend?
Loud and clear.
Excellent. Thanks, Gary, and I really appreciate it. A big welcome to you all, and really excited to be having this discussion. I'm the managing director for Elevate, which is the sister company to Tech Experts, and our primary focus is filling that digital gap by skilling the right people in Africa. And I think just to start off, in terms of what I want to achieve in the next few minutes as I engage with you, is just to leave you with 5 key reasons why Africa, especially at this point in time, is perfectly suited with regards to providing the resources, the capability, and the environment to drive outsourcing from an African perspective. And one of the key factors, just to start off with, which is number 1, is that Africa has got the largest youth population. I mean, the median age in Africa is around 18. It is expected by 2050, 40% of the world's youth will be based here in Africa. If you look at the stats for the rest of the world, whether it's Europe, North America, Oceania, Asia, it averages in between 30 to 45 years. Now, why is that important from an African perspective? Because with youth means there's innovation, there's a talent that you can skill. And if you go back to that circle that my colleague Gary was talking about, all of those components are largely aligned to youth capability. So it's quite key to have a labor force that is young and that is able to be skilled and trained and produce innovative ideas. So that's the first point that I just want to highlight in terms of a young workforce that is in Africa, obviously giving quite a comparative advantage compared to other regions. The second point, which I'd like to highlight, which is also key and also alludes to the fact that my colleague previously highlighted on, is that Africa, from a cost perspective, if you look at the key sort of economic countries that drive growth in Africa, which is South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and Egypt, the average index for cost is sitting at about 38.5 compared to your UK's and the USA's, where it's closer to 100. Again, this highlights, again, from a labor perspective, from a cost-based perspective, Africa gives you that base or that foundation that is very, very competitive when you want to draw capability and skill and labor from the continent. So after youth availability, it brings the alignment of cost. So another key element that plays a fundamental role in that regard. The third component, which is something that we mustn't take for granted but plays another key role, is that the presence of English, French, and Portuguese across all 54 countries in different components or spread is another key thing. It's a multilingual continent, and especially when you're servicing a global market or global clients, you want to have that flexibility of language that allows you to accommodate both English, French, and Portuguese clients. So another key differentiator. Over and above this, Africa itself obviously has got a lot of ethnic languages that exist, but just from a global service perspective, English, French, and Portuguese are undoubtedly key languages that you want to be able to service clients from a global perspective. Going to the fourth component is time zones. If you look at Tech Experts, our sister company, they've got an office in Nigeria where we as Elevate also operate from, and they've got an office in Rwanda, which is on the other side of the continent, the eastern part of Africa. So already you've got time options that you can actually leverage off over and above this because of the hunger and the need to service global companies. A lot of companies are already providing services on a 24-hour basis. So again, that flexibility allows you to to position Africa as a competitive destination when leveraging off its resources and capability in providing global services. And then the fifth, which is absolutely key when you're looking at where the world is going and what is just more important than making money and making profits, is an opportunity for impact sourcing from a UN SDG goals perspective. And when you look at by investing and working with multinationals or providing services from an Africa base, two key components that from an SDG perspective that play an absolute critical role in terms of aligning key KPIs of companies is that you'll be contributing to decent work and economic growth, which is something that's obviously needed in Africa, in any continent. And more importantly, it reduces inequalities because you're leveraging off skills, you're developing youth, and you're ticking all the right boxes from an SDG point. So just to summarize, those 5 key components that play an absolutely critical role with regards to doing business in Africa and making it a competitive location for outsourcing is firstly the young population, which is growing on a year-on-year basis. You've also got a competitive cost base that you can leverage off. It's a multilingual continent with Portuguese, English, and French that is available. You've got variable time zones that you can leverage off. And last but not least, you contribute to the SDGs. So with that, I'm going to hand over back to my colleagues just to give you a bit more insight, because Africa has 54 countries. You can't encapsulate everything in one talk. But I think the beauty that we bring today is that we give you a glimpse, and through that glimpse, 2 key countries, Nigeria and Kenya and Rwanda, that play a key role in terms of driving this content will give you further insight. So over to you. I think it's Bola, if I'm not wrong, from my Nigerian office. Over to you, Bola.
Yeah, thank you, Otendo, and a big welcome to everyone. I am Bola, the country manager for Tech Experts in Nigeria. So basically, I start by giving insight into Nigeria as one of the 54 countries in Africa. Nigeria is one of the most populous countries in Africa with over 200 million people, and this is expected to grow to over 400 million by 2050. And as Otendo has mentioned earlier on, we have the lowest median range and youthful population in the top 10 countries globally. The median age in Nigeria is about 25. And the beauty of it is English is the official language in the country with over 79 million people that are able to communicate with excellent proficiency in English language. And this positions Nigeria to be able to support global locations across EMEA and North America. Today, we have over 600,000 university graduates yearly in different areas across IT, engineering, science, business management. And the literacy rate in the country is 59%. Unemployment is 32%. All these metrics put together positions Nigeria as a country that, yes, we have a very huge talent base. We are not saturated when compared to other locations that are known for IT outsourcing. It's less competitive and it's a better cost advantage for IT outsourcing globally. In terms of infrastructure, a lot has happened in the last 10 years. The broadband penetration in the country today is over 40%. You have mobile phone penetration with 80%, and this includes both 3G and 4G capabilities available in the major cities. There are about 6 submarine cables that come into the country. Recently, Google also invested in a subsea cable to improve the high internet penetration in the country. And a lot has also gone on in the private sector with large organizations like Microsoft opening up their data center for software development in the country. This also positions Nigeria strategically. Geographically, we are located to be able to support the EMEA, the North America, and the Asia time zones. And we do this successfully in Tech Expert over the last 4 years. And I will share a bit of our success story in Nigeria. Tech Expert, we started our operations 4 years ago. And today we are a team of 1,800 software engineers. Then we have 100 people in the operations management leadership, from team managers to operations leaders. We have another team of 100 people in business enablement, supporting from talent acquisition to training to the quality assurance to make sure that we are able to deliver a top and excellent service to clients. globally. And in terms of gender diversity, it's a mix. We have 30% female and 70% male. And today, Tech Expert Nigeria, we support very big OEMs like Microsoft, Micro Focus, and we support them across the entire world, from EMEA to North America and to Asia. We run a 24/7 operations in Nigeria. The team in Nigeria, we support basically very high-level technologies, from cloud technologies to enterprise solutions to commercial applications, CRM, developers, app services, customization. We also do services around professional services. We do managed services across different areas of the IT spectrum. What has helped us so far is what the circle which my colleague shared earlier on. We have the capability to be able to source talent because the country has a very large talent pool. We're able to assess this talent. We're able to upskill them in different areas, whether it's technical, is soft skill, or we can onboard them depending on the requirements of the client. And to help iteration, we are able to grow this talent because we have customized learning journeys, career journeys that involve different levels of digital upskilling. And this gives us the opportunity to scale up very fast, 2,000 in the last 4 years, and we are looking to double the size of the operation very soon. When it comes to operational performance, the team today is doing a 96.6% support and customer satisfaction. We do 95% case resolution, and productivity level is really above 105%. And this is month on month for the last 24 months. Tech Expert in Nigeria, recently we got an award as the best place to work in the country. We got another one as African Leading Tech Support Company of the Year. And really, like my colleagues have also mentioned, our focus is to grow our operation in Africa. Our focus is to grow and double the size of operation in Nigeria. In particular, we have a very huge talent base that is really on tap in Nigeria. With this, I'll hand over to my colleague Gary. He will give you more insight about our operations in Rwanda and what we do there. So Gary, over to you.
Marvelous. Thank you very much, Bola. Really good, and I think we've started with Rotendo, so we've seen the Africa view, and you've got a sense now of obviously a very significant country and player in terms of Nigeria. There is an expression certainly in Africa that it takes a village to raise a child, and certainly from a Rwanda perspective, Rwanda is our latest location, and I work closely with the Rwanda Development Board to work out how we ensure the businesses that work here, the support we provide, are successful, and make sure that what we bring and how we work is able to deliver to global audiences, be that through connectivity, be that through making sure it's commercially viable, and being able to support exactly what we're trying to deliver and what people need from a talent perspective. You think about those initial 64% and 87%. How do we make sure countries in Africa, and particularly Rwanda, can deliver that? And I wanted to give you a bit of background from the context of Rwanda, I guess. Very different mix than Nigeria. So we're about 12.5 million people here. Good blend of literacy and the same challenges we have around employment. So definitely key from a Rwanda perspective to hit some of those goals that Rotendo talked around impact, around being able to provide skill and being cost effective. We've got the right employment base, we need the demand. So we can provide the skill, whether that skill be in particular areas like clients we support, like Micro Focus or Microsoft, or even providing skill in areas that is newer to us, clients like SAP or Salesforce. How do we ensure that I can create a hub here for you that can give you those skills and allow you to deliver SAP skill either out of Rwanda or out of Nigeria? Economically stable, and again, that blend of languages that Rotendo talked about, very relevant here in Rwanda. We do support in French and German for Micro Focus as well. Not at scale, so I'm not talking hundreds, but we've got the ability to recruit, and the diaspora that sits around here from an East Africa perspective to be able to supply language support and really effective, clean language support as well. So that's Rwanda. And back to our village again, Rwanda Development Board is very invested in making sure that this is a really strong way forward. And I think that's really part of the Africa success story is the impact that this kind of work has from the point of view of driving and changing economies is significant. So the investment and support we get to make sure this works, be it around infrastructure, around the talent pool that's available, or the real estate. So all the building blocks we need to build a successful operation and deliver to global standards out of Rwanda are put in place. So Rwanda Development Board, RDB, are very keen to do that, very keen to promote it. Rwanda itself doesn't have large gold reserves. It doesn't have other particular service industries. So being able to work with its people and create people as its talent and its gold that we can mine is really, really key, and that's what makes the difference. One of the things, though, when we see stuff like this, and we all see it in PowerPoint, and in fairness, we are just the warm-up to David speaking later, just to give you the context. There's lots of facts and figures. Rwanda Development Board will tell us this is the 6th fastest growing economy in Africa, for instance. It will tell us that it's the 5th safest country to walk around in the world. And I've experienced that because I spent 17 years in South Africa, and that is not one of the safest countries to walk around in the world. It's one of the second easiest places to do business after Mauritius. And it's those kind of things that are put out there. But does it ring true? And I guess I wanted to give you a sense of what our experience has been from coming here and setting up. So definitely talent pools. We haven't seen any recruitment challenges as we've worked through, and we've taken the business from about 50 odd to about 200 odd people now with David and his team. So we are able to be successful from a talent perspective, and we're able to pipeline for the future, so we can start to grow, and we can understand how and where we're going to grow. A lot of that is back to our village. I spend a lot of time partnering and working with the universities we have in country. So we have universities like Carnegie Mellon, Kepler, who are backed by Southern New Hampshire University, and University of Coventry, who've set up their East Africa hub here in Rwanda. So we've got that ability to take the talent that are coming out of the universities with the right degrees. And there's about 6,000 a year that come out with STEM degrees from a Rwanda perspective. Time zone, as Bola mentioned, and safety, linked to safety. So I have a completely 24/7 support center. And I'm sure David will talk a bit about this later. We align our teams directly to David's geographical areas. So my guys can come in and out from work. We provide transport. We make sure the environment is safe, and they can come in and out of work and move around with no issues, be that 5 in the morning, 2 in the morning, whatever time we need the shifts to work. Infrastructure-wise, strong fiber optic backbone. So cloud services and the ability to create fiber to obviously to the building, but also fiber to home is really important. So we have the ability to create solid BCP solutions here as well. And we've talked about the youthful population, very prevalent here in Rwanda. I mean, look at myself, one of the youthful population of Rwanda myself. So we've got those digital natives able to relate to being able to solve cases, being inquisitive, being curious, and wanting to learn and grow more. So all in all, I think our fact-checking has worked, and David at the end will talk through a bit more of that, and has his experience mirrored what I believe we're delivering and what I believe we can find here in Rwanda. From the point of our journey, so that's the building I'm sat in on the left there, the people there, that's Jackie on the right in the red jacket. She runs all of our learning and development. Kester in the middle, he runs the operation for us, and Gloria on the far side, she runs all of our HR services as well. So we deliberately create buildings that are very warm, welcoming, and where the guys want to be. So we started this around September last year. In fact, it was our 1-year anniversary last Tuesday, and one of the local papers covered that recently. So there's a link out there. You can see the team celebrating 1 year. And we started with 50 engineers. We literally put our toe in the water. We got the guys in, and they were 50 guys coming into David's environment, being able to support micro-focused customers. What we saw was they really adapted well to the learning, to the technology, to how the enterprise worked, and started to deliver really, really well. So that allowed us to grow. It didn't allow us to grow because somebody's out there knocking on the door saying, give me more seats, give me more work. This has grown organically to 180 now, nearly 200, just through the performance that these guys have produced. So my team, be it starting with entry levels, sort of level 1, as John talked about, customer support and some level 2 stuff. We've created more roles at different skill levels. We've introduced customer success, delivering out of Rwanda, and also some sales support through a team called Quote Assist. So we've added complexity, we've added products from starting with 2 lines of business, we're now 13. And the aim is to grow more to probably around 600 towards the end of 2023. So that right tower in the picture, we will fill that up, and then we'll work out what our next building strategy will be. So for me, it worked really, really well. I'm dead proud of what the guys have done here and what the team have done. And every time people visit, they get a sense of what they're about and what we're delivering. But like I said, we really are, myself, Rotendo, Bola, we are the warm-up to what David's going to talk through now with John. I had the pleasure of meeting David earlier in the year. He's the Director for International Customer Support for Micro Focus. So once he was able to travel, he came to Rwanda and really was able to connect with not just the team and the operation, but the people in the country. So I'm going to do my handover bit now to David. David, welcome, and just tell everyone a bit about yourself if you can.
Thank you, Gary. Hopefully you can hear me loud and proud.
Yep, loud and proud.
Good stuff, thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is David Papworth. Really pleased to be here today to be able to talk about my experience with Rwanda. So say, David Papworth, I am the International Director for Customer Support in Micro Focus. International sounds rather grand. It relates to Europe, Middle East, Africa, and also Latin America. So they're the areas that I'm responsible for. I've been doing this role for about 2 years. Prior to that, I ran professional services for Micro Focus in the UK. Just a quick bit of background to Micro Focus. We are one of the world's largest enterprise software providers. We are headquartered in the UK. Annual revenue of about 2.9 billion, 11,000 plus employees, spread around 48 countries around the world. And we provide many different types of software. We do everything that allows our customers to both run their organizations, but also to transform them as well. So that's me. And John, I know you're going to ask me a few questions.
Yes, Micro Focus is a TSIA member. Thrilled to have you here participating with us today. I have to say, I haven't seen this many questions come in from the audience on a webinar for quite a while, so a lot of interest in this topic. But I want to ask a few questions that I always get about companies approaching new outsourcing relationships and locations. Could you start with just a little bit of background about how tech experts and Micro Focus work together, how that partnership is structured?
Yeah, of course. We have a long relationship with tech experts. Micro Focus have worked with them for many years. Within my area of the business, we really use tech to provide additional capacity. So it allows us to supplement our support team, makes us more flexible. Tech provide the engineers. We train those engineers as much as we can, and we treat them very much as an extension to our own team. We have a model in place that gives us global coverage using tech experts. So we cover, EMEA, we cover the Americas, and we cover AMS as well. And we have people in China, Vietnam, Costa Rica, Bulgaria, Nigeria, and Rwanda. So many of many of tech's locations. Having resources spread around the world allows us to provide local support within customers' time zones. That's really important to us. And I think the final thing to say is we work as a single team with tech experts. I encourage all my team to work as one team. So there's no us and them. It is very much a partnership in the way that we work.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I think that that's one common element to every company I talk to that is having a very successful outsourcing experience. They're not viewing them as them. It's always an extension of the team. And, I think the more you can do to foster that, it is really important. So as you said, you've had experience with a lot of locations around the globe. I think you've been working with tech experts in Rwanda for a little over 6 months now. What was your expectation when you began that partnership?
So I have to say I was a little shocked. When it was first mentioned that we would be having a new team in Rwanda, I wasn't expecting it. We know the usual locations where this sort of business happens. So I say it was a little surprise. So no real expectations to start with. I think I was quite skeptical. I think it's fair to say that Rwanda was not a country I would ever have expected. I didn't really have much history of it, didn't know much about it. But I was told very early on the benefits, told very early on about the workforce, this young, dynamic workforce with a good education, good language skills. and also, as I found out, quite a European style of working, which really works well with our customer base as well. So yeah, it was a surprise, but a pleasant surprise.
Well, that's great to hear. What would you say were some of your top learnings so far, and any surprises along the way?
Okay, top learnings. I think one of the first things, I think this came out of COVID as well, from the COVID crisis that we had. The first thing to me is to go there. I think it's very difficult to understand a team, to understand the culture, to understand the way they work, the way they interact. You can do so much on Teams and remote sessions, but actually being there made the difference. The team were so welcoming, genuinely appreciative of me going out there with another guy from my team as well, and just spending time with them. I think we learned a lot of lessons previously during COVID. Certainly, we didn't visit some of the other locations in the early days. I think visiting Rwanda really got a chance for us to know them to know us. So I really couldn't, underestimate that enough at all. And it's a beautiful country. It was a pleasure to go there, to meet the people, and to find out more about it. So I think that's the first thing. I think the other thing in my own organization is, like me, people were surprised when Rwanda was mentioned. They were a little bit, nonplussed by it. So I've spent a lot of time evangelizing and really promoting what I've seen of the Rwandan team to other colleagues, to other people in the organization that I work with. I think it's really important that I take the experience that I gained and I share it with others. I encourage my managers to make as much interaction as they can with the Rwandan team. I've got a few of my managers going out next month is the plan, or maybe into November time, again, to keep building those relationships. So I think, promoting Rwanda was an important thing within Micro Focus. The other thing that really hit me about the country and about Rwanda was the engineers there have a real pride working with international customers and international organizations. That really shocks me. They often, a lot of the roles in Rwanda are local based, working for local organizations, local tech companies. The engineers that I work with love the fact that not only is Micro Focus global, but our customers then are global as well. And they get to meet people and to talk to people from many sectors and many countries. And I heard many examples of the Rwandan engineers talking about the pride and how their family are proud and how they share it with their friends about what they do for a living. That made a big difference to me. This isn't just a job for them. This is something they love doing and are proud to do. And I wasn't expecting that. That was a real pleasant surprise.
Yeah, something you don't often hear from American outsourcing locations. So I think that's great. Well, let me ask one final question, and then we'll move to some of the audience Q&A. As you look forward to the rest of 22 and heading into 2023, what are you most excited about? What's on the horizon?
So I think the first thing is expansion. Gary's talked about how that team's easy to grow. And so out of the 3 regions within EMEA or within international, this is the region and the country that is going to grow quickest and will be the largest as well. So seeing the team develop, grow, using their own style and approach is what I'm keen to see. The really exciting bit, and Gary mentioned it earlier on as well, is the 24/7. Like I say, as a company that does worldwide support, our traditional 24/7 model relies on follow the sun across the 3 regions. So we hand over to the Americas hand over to APJ, and then it comes back into EMEA. Excuse me. What we're doing with Rwanda now is building 24/7 in the building. And again, as Gary mentioned, because it's so safe, and again, I've experienced that, it is such a safe country, there is no issue at all having staff in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the big benefit for Micro Focus and our customers is we have true live handovers between teams. There's nothing about having to send emails or chat on Teams. Physically, the team that is finishing walk over and talk to the team that are just starting and do proper warm handover of cases. That to me is a big shift. That's a game changer. And so already I'm starting to see the benefits of doing that. And I know that we are working with tech on rolling it out further. So we'll get more and more of our products into that 24/7. So like I say, I think that is a big difference and something that will really give benefits to us and to our customers.
That's great to hear. I hear so many stories about follow the sun and how things fall through the cracks, and that makes perfect sense. And doing that warm handoff from shift to shift is, absolutely the best possible scenario. So Vanessa, I know we've got a lot of pending questions from the audience. Take it away.
We do. Thanks so much, John. Like you mentioned, so many questions, but in case we aren't able to answer all of your questions here live, please still insert them in the Ask a Question box in the upper left-hand corner, and we'll make sure to follow up with you personally. I'll start right off, though. This first question is going to be from Victor, and it's for you, David. They ask, how does the performance in Rwanda compare to the performance in other locations that you outsource?
So I think it's quite early in terms of performance. It's only been a 6-month thing. So let me talk in more sort of general terms. The thing for me in terms of the performance of the teams that I see, and this is maybe a term that doesn't travel well, but I see the engineers there being like sponges. They just want to soak up technical skills and experience. They often need to be told to go home. Certainly when I was working over there as well, that was the case. They want to learn new things. They put the effort in to really understand, and they go over and above to understand more about Micro Focus, more about our customers, but more importantly, more about our products to make sure that they can support the customers well. They just want to learn, and that was a big fundamental difference from our other locations.
Okay, our next question comes from Bruno, and this is going to be for you, Bola. How is the level of skill in Nigeria in SAP and Oracle technologies?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier on, Nigeria has the capability to support complex and deep technical technologies. And really, for example, in Tech Experts today, in Nigeria, we have a team of over 100 people supporting Dynamics, ERP, and CRM globally. So when you talk about SAP and Oracle, we have that skill set at very high level in the country. However, and we have our Elevate team that are fully involved in upskilling, training in different areas from cloud technology to data and AI to business applications. And we have that capabilities. Even when we identify skill gap within the country, we are able to upskill either at small level or at mass upskilling level. And Gary, I think you can also talk more about that for Rwanda.
Yeah, and I think Bola mentioned a really key thing there. What I'd spent a lot of time here, we talked about demand and how we create demand in the country such as Rwanda. And what I try and do is we try and create hubs of skill and expertise. So I'm working with local companies, with Elevate, and with global providers as well to say, how do I create, for instance, a data analytics hub? We know data analytics is the next cybersecurity shortfall. 11.5 million people need training or retraining over the next few years. So how do I, back to my village again, how do I find a client partner that wants the skill? I create the skill through the universities or through Elevate or a combination of the two, and then I deliver it out of the hub here in Rwanda. And we've got the ability to do that. We see that. We're starting to do that now. That could be for data analytics. I'm talking to an Israeli security company that's here as well around how we do that from a cyber security perspective. And then also we could look to create hubs, certainly in SAP. When I was in Orlando, I talked to a couple of people who were looking for additional SAP skills, or it could be Salesforce skills. And we've started to work with the universities to create dedicated programs that grow that skill, plus the alumni that we've got here already. So very capable of creating and bespoking and tailoring the skill that you want and to deliver out of Africa.
Okay, let's go ahead and squeeze in one last question. And it comes from Bashkar. And I believe this would be best answered by you, Rotundo. Just wanted to know how Africa's IT infrastructure can help Africa be globally acclaimed.
Thanks for that, Vanessa. And I think, in short summary, I think one of the key highlights that answer that question is if you look at the big infrastructure players globally, AWS has built a massive data center in Cape Town, South Africa, to service Africa. So already you've got, today I was at the US Department of Commerce with HP, who are participating in the AFRICOM Coming Conference and highlighting how they want to invest bigger infrastructure in Africa. So all those big names, when it comes to infrastructure, you've got big telecom players also throwing infrastructure like your Vodacoms onto the African continent. And the reason I'm naming these multinational players is because these guys have established themselves in other parts of the world, and by virtue of them actually putting brick and mortar onto the African continent is also a reflection in terms of world-class infrastructure that is going to obviously lay a key foundation with regards to creating an outsourcing environment from an IT perspective. So I'm really summarizing. I'm also being conscious of time. Vanessa, I can talk until the water off a duck's back, but I know that
he can. That's very true. Thanks,
Gary, for your approval. So, but that's really it. Your AWS, your Vodacom, your Microsoft, all throwing infrastructure onto the continent, world class. So already that answers and gives you that assurance that the continent is ripe in terms of responding to that. Back to you, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. And we have come to the conclusion of today's webinar, but just as a reminder, I know there are so many questions we weren't able to answer live. We will make sure to reach out to you personally. With that being said, just a few reminders before we sign off for today. There will be an exit survey at the end of today's live webinar. You could take a few minutes to provide your feedback on the content and your experience by filling out that brief survey. A link to the recorded version of today's webinar will be sent out within the next 24 hours. I'd now like to take this time to thank our presenters, John, Rotundo, Bola, Gary, and David, for delivering an outstanding and engaging session. And thank you everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's live webinar, The Rise of Africa as the Next IT Outsourcing Hub, brought to you by Technology and Services Industry Association and sponsored by Tech Experts. We look forward to seeing you at our next TSIA webinar. Take care, everyone.